Imagine finally unpacking your last box, sitting down in your new home, and then getting a text from the previous owner that says, "Hey, I forgot to tell you about the hidden cameras." No explanation, no warning, just that. What would you do next, knowing this house may have been watching you the entire time? Welcome back to Betty's Magical Stories, the place where ordinary moments turn into chilling mysteries and unbelievable true stories unfold one detail at a time. Here, we dive deep into stories that start small, a strange message, a forgotten detail, a single sentence, and slowly reveal something far darker underneath. If you love suspenseful stories that feel real because they are real, you're in the right place. Get comfortable, turn down the lights, and let tonight's story pull you in. The sentence hung in the air like a bad smell, the kind you can't locate but instantly know will cause problems. The new homeowner reread the message 3 times, convinced there had to be some misunderstanding. People forget spare keys. They forget boxes in the attic. They forget old furniture in the garage. But hidden cameras? That wasn't something you just casually remembered after signing paperwork, handing over keys, and waving goodbye. The house itself had seemed normal enough at first. A 2-story place in a quiet neighborhood, beige siding, a neatly trimmed hedge, and a porch that caught the afternoon sun just right. The listing photos showed clean rooms, neutral colors, and the vague promise of a fresh start. Nothing about it hinted at secrets, let alone ones wired into the walls. The sale went smoothly. Inspections passed. No major issues were flagged. The former owner, a middle-aged man who worked in tech, according to the realtor, appeared polite, a little reserved but not unusual. He answered questions directly, signed where he was told, and never overstayed a conversation. If anything, he seemed eager to move on. So, when the message arrived 3 weeks after move-in, it felt unreal. "I forgot the hidden cameras, but they're not connected to anything anymore. You can just remove them whenever." The words "hidden cameras" did all the damage on their own. The follow-up reassurance barely mattered. Not connected anymore, just remove them, as if you were talking about old smoke detectors or a router left behind. The new homeowner's first reaction wasn't fear, it was confusion. Where would hidden cameras even be, and why would someone install them in the first place?
A reply was drafted, deleted, rewritten, and deleted again. Eventually, a short response was sent asking for clarification. Where exactly were these cameras? How many were there? And why hadn't this been disclosed before the sale? The response came quickly, almost too quickly. The former owner explained that years ago, after a break-in scare, he had installed several small cameras inside the house, mostly common areas, he claimed. The living room, the hallway, one near the back door. Over time, he stopped using them and forgot they were there. He insisted none were in private spaces and that they hadn't been active for a long time. That explanation raised more questions than it answered. A call was made to the realtor, who was just as shocked. Hidden cameras were absolutely something that should have been disclosed, even if inactive, even if forgotten, especially if forgotten. The realtor promised to look into it and suggested the new homeowner do a careful sweep of the house. That night, sleep didn't come easily. Every shadow looked suspicious. Every small dark circle on the wall suddenly seemed like it could be watching. The house, which had felt cozy just days earlier, now felt exposed. The next morning, the search began. It started with the obvious places. Smoke detectors were checked first, then air vents, corners of ceilings and shelves. At first, nothing seemed out of place, but then, in the living room, tucked behind a decorative beam near the ceiling, something small and black caught the light. It was no bigger than a coin. A closer look confirmed it.
A camera lens, cleverly disguised, partially obscured by paint and shadow. It wasn't immediately clear whether it was powered, but its presence alone was enough to make the stomach drop. That discovery changed everything. Over the next 2 days, more cameras were found. One in the hallway, one near the back door, just as the former owner had said, but then there were others he hadn't mentioned. One in a guest bedroom, one in the finished basement, and one, most disturbing of all, in a corner of what was now the primary bedroom, hidden inside what looked like a small decorative hook. That was the moment the situation crossed from unsettling to terrifying. Authorities were contacted. When police arrived, they treated the house like a potential crime scene. The cameras were carefully removed and bagged. Investigators checked for active connections, hidden servers, and signs that footage had been stored or transmitted. The former owner was contacted and asked to come in for questioning. What started as an awkward confession about forgotten devices quickly turned into a much larger investigation. Digital forensics revealed that at least some of the cameras had been active far more recently than the former owner claimed. Metadata showed recordings from just months before the sale. Even worse, some data fragments suggested remote access, meaning the cameras may have been viewable from outside the house. The former owner's story began to unravel. Under questioning, he admitted he had installed the cameras for security, but couldn't clearly explain why some were placed in bedrooms. He claimed they were never meant to spy on anyone, but struggled to justify their locations. When asked why he hadn't removed them before selling the house, he said he simply forgot. Investigators weren't convinced. As the story broke locally, it spread fast. Headlines appeared online within days. Neighbors who had barely exchanged hellos before were now gathered on sidewalks, whispering and speculating. Had he been watching them too? Had there been cameras pointed outside? Had anyone else been recorded without their knowledge? The house became a focal point of attention, not for its charm or price, but for what had happened inside its walls. Legal experts weighed in, explaining that laws around surveillance vary by location, but undisclosed cameras in private spaces could constitute serious crimes. Civil lawsuits were discussed. Criminal charges were considered. The former owner, once just another guy moving out of town, was now at the center of a growing storm. For the new homeowner, life was on pause. Staying in the house felt impossible, but leaving felt like letting the situation win. Friends offered couches. Family urged caution. Every option felt heavy. Then another twist emerged. During the forensic analysis, investigators found something unexpected. Some of the footage didn't just show empty rooms or the former owner going about his daily life. It showed other people, visitors, guests, and in some cases, people who had never been mentioned before. One clip showed a woman sitting on the edge of the bed in the primary bedroom, crying quietly. Another showed a man pacing in the basement late at night, speaking urgently on the phone. These weren't random moments. They felt personal, private, intimate. When confronted with this, the former owner's demeanor changed. He stopped insisting he'd forgotten. Instead, he claimed the recordings had been accidental, that he never watched them, that he didn't even know they were being saved. But investigators could see logs showing files being accessed, played, and even copied. The phrase, "I forgot the hidden cameras," began to look less like a mistake and more like a desperate attempt at damage control. As weeks passed, more information surfaced. A former neighbor came forward saying they had once noticed strange wiring near the back of the house. A delivery driver recalled seeing the former owner installing something near a window years earlier. A technician from an internet service provider remembered the man asking oddly specific questions about bandwidth and remote access. Bit by bit, a picture formed. This wasn't just about security. It wasn't about paranoia after a break-in scare. It was about control. Psychologists interviewed by the media explained how some individuals use surveillance as a way to feel powerful, to observe without being seen, to collect moments that were never meant to be shared. In extreme cases, it can become an obsession, blurring the line between protection and violation. The former owner was eventually charged with multiple counts related to illegal surveillance and invasion of privacy. More charges were considered as investigators worked to identify everyone captured on the recordings. Some potential victims were notified. Others may never know. The legal process was slow and draining. Court dates were set, postponed, and rescheduled. Motions were filed. Evidence was reviewed again and again. The story remained in the news, occasionally resurfacing when new details emerged. For the new homeowner, the emotional toll was immense. Even after the cameras were removed, the sense of being watched lingered. Walls felt thinner. Silence felt louder. Trust in the space had been broken. Therapists often talk about how violations of privacy can have lasting effects, especially when they occur in places meant to be safe. A home isn't just a building. It's where people let their guard down, where they sleep, cry, argue, and celebrate. To realize those moments might have been observed without consent is deeply destabilizing. Eventually, changes were made. The locks were replaced, the walls were scanned again, an independent security firm was hired to inspect every inch in the house. No more cameras were found, but reassurance didn't come easily. The house was repainted. Furniture was rearranged. Small rituals were created to reclaim the space. Lights turned on at night. Music played in empty rooms. Friends invited over more often. Slowly, the house began to feel less like a crime scene and more like a home again. The case concluded months later with a plea agreement. The former owner accepted responsibility for some of the charges, though many questions remained unanswered. What he truly intended, how often he watched, whether there were other houses. The phrase he had used so casually at the start of it all became infamous. "I forgot the hidden cameras, but..." It was repeated in articles, quoted in podcasts, dissected online. People joked about it darkly, using it as shorthand for red flags ignored and secrets revealed too late. But for those directly affected, there was nothing funny about it. The story sparked broader conversations about privacy, disclosure laws, and how much trust we place in the spaces we buy and sell. Real estate professionals began emphasizing more thorough checks. Buyers became more cautious. Some even started bringing their own scanning equipment to inspections. Technology, once again, had outpaced etiquette and expectation. Tiny cameras are cheaper now, easier to hide, harder to detect. And while most people use them responsibly, stories like this serve as a reminder of how easily they can be misused. Years from now, the house will likely just be another address on a quiet street. New owners may never know what happened there. The walls will stand. The floors will creak. Life will go on. But for those who lived through it, the memory will always be there. A reminder that sometimes the most unsettling discoveries don't happen during the walkthrough or the inspection, but weeks later in a simple message that starts with a casual confession and ends with a chilling realization. After the move, the former owner said, "I forgot the hidden cameras," and nothing in that house was ever quite the same again. And that's today's story on Betty's Magical Stories. If this one made you pause, question, or glance around the room just a little differently, let me know by leaving a comment. Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed the story, subscribe for more mysterious and unforgettable tales, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Until next time, stay curious, and remember, some secrets are never truly forgotten.